Welcome to The Application, the go-to how-to podcast for higher education marketers. I'm your host, Allison Tercio, Assistant Vice President of Enrollment and Marketing at Siena College. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, this podcast is packed with practical tips and actionable advice to help you elevate your marketing game. In each snackable episode, we bring in experts to share their insights and experience on the topics that matter most to you. Got a question or idea you'd like us to cover? Email team@enrollify.org or reach out to me on Twitter or LinkedIn. The application is part of the Enrollify Podcast Network, and if you like this show, you'll definitely want to check out our other higher ed focused podcasts on admissions, tech, marketing, and more. They're packed with stories, ideas, and tools to help you be the best in your field. All right, it's time for the show. Today's episode is for every marketer out there who's ever wanted to be a catalyst for cultural change within their institution, but wasn't quite sure how to take that first step. I'm thrilled to introduce our guest, Fredrick Martin, Senior Director of Change Management at University of Virginia. Together, we're going to get straight to the actionable insights I know you've been craving on this topic. Welcome, Fredrick.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the time for allowing me to come in and chat with you today.
I'm really excited about this conversation because I think marketers are often natural change agents, right? But higher ed isn't known for change.
Yeah.
So I'm so interested to get your take on this topic. Can you briefly introduce yourself and share your background in cultural transformation within higher ed?
Sure. Yeah, no. Again, Fredrick Martin, Senior Director of Change Management here at University of Virginia. I've been with the university for almost 6 years now. I have over what I would say 15 years of organizational transformation and change management experience. For the last 10 years or so, my focus has been around HR transformation as it relates to large institutions, healthcare systems. My role also supports our health system too as well. So I get to live in both worlds, not only the academic division, but also our health system too, as well. And so a large part of my focus is really what I would say, leaving people in places better than I found them. So how do you begin to look at what's transpiring within an institution and where that institution needs to be, and how do you get them there through the power of our culture?
And how does a cultural shift, like we're talking about, how can that impact the overall brand and reputation to a higher ed institution? Why is it important to be thinking about this?
Yeah, no, I think it's important to be thinking about this for all institutions, and I'm going to talk specifically as it relates to the employee populations. I know a lot of times institutions really focus on the student experience and the student and the student population, but I'm specifically talking about as it relates to the employee population. As you hear a lot of conversations over the last 3 years or so talking about the employee experience, the Great Resignation, people rethinking and reshifting how they see and view work as being a part of their lives. And so this is not going to change. And I think we look at higher ed institutions and historically how they work and how they operate and the cultures that live inside them, this is a fantastic opportunity. And even though I will also say a needed opportunity to really look at the culture from a place of the beliefs and the behaviors that operate within your institution and what it actually means to work there. How I often define this as when people say the employee experience is truly how the employees experience the work, and not, it's not about ping pong tables. It is not about having enormous hours of PTO, but it's really about how employees experience work day in and day out. And this is a pivotal point within higher education as we begin to usher in the next couple of generations of the workforce, which quite frankly will be looking and expecting very different things from the employer than they have in the past.
I don't think that you can have a great student experience if you don't have a great employee experience.
Agreed.
So they're connected, right? And I don't think that an institution whether it's a college or university or any organization, I don't think you can be living your brand or your mission if the employee experience isn't matching to what that looks like.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think often enough, organizations, institutions look at their brand and as who they are, and it really is who they are on paper. But when you're talking about culture and experience, it is actually what's lived within inside of your organization each and every day. I was talking to a colleague of mine a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about the employee value proposition, because this is also another big sort of term and thing that is coming around as institutions are reshaping and rethinking their workforce. And the conversation around employee value proposition was, your employee value proposition is treated like, in my mind, like your best friend that works somewhere else. So if I had a best friend that worked at Duke, for example, and I said, well, hey, I'm entertaining an opportunity to join Duke. What is it actually like to work there? And whatever that best friend tells me is how, is the employee value proposition. So your employee value proposition should be something that stands in the gap for not having the best friend to tell you like exactly what it is like to work there. Where organizations, institutions typically go wrong at when they're talking about the employee value propositions, and I can definitely see marketers and marketing kind of following the same trend, is they automatically gravitate towards, well, how many days of PCO do we have? What are the benefits? What are the benefits that we offer? And the biggest mistake is that they spend the emphasis of the employee value proposition focusing on why we are great versus what is it like for you to be here, be a part of this community. So it's less about, you should come and join us because we're a top 10 institution and we have the best research or we have the amazing faculty, as it should be more about, what is it like for you to be here, a part of this community, and how do we help grow and nurture you, and you can thrive in this community, and less about our accolades. And so that's a big shift in thinking for institutions, because we're sort of born and bred on who we are and where we've been, what we've achieved.
I find it particularly interesting that you're saying that the actual experience of the work is what matters more than those accolades, because you're coming from UVA, and UVA could name so many great accolades that many other colleges don't have the opportunity to name, but that's still not enough.
Yeah, still not enough. So the brand gets you in the door.
Yeah,
the brand gets you in the door, but how you actually experience work and what's taking place. For example, if your institution prides itself in being a forward-thinking, innovative place of higher learning, but the actual experience of work is you have 82 steps to buy a stapler, they don't match.
Yeah,
they don't match, and that's what people are looking for. And why this is extremely important is that, and especially you see this in top talent. Top talent, because we are truly in a war for talent. The top talent has the ability to go anywhere they want when they want to go. And if what they're experiencing doesn't match what they've been told or what they believe to see, they will leave. They will vote with their feet and go find somewhere else that matches the experience that they're looking for. I call it the sort of the Great Wizard of Oz effect, to where the brand is so big to where you're thinking to yourself, wow, this has to be amazing because the brand is so big. There's no way that it can be functioning in this manner. And then you kind of go back and you pull behind the curtain and you find all these things. You're like, wow, it is not what I expected. That they don't match each other. And so that's why it's extremely important.
What role do you think that marketers can play in this? So most of the people listening to us right now, they're sitting in that chair. And it seems to me it's high risk because marketing needs a strong brand. Our jobs are a lot easier with a strong brand and reputation, but if that's not the lived experience of the institution, there's a lot of risk there for the marketers. So what role can marketers play? What strategies and approaches can they take to drive cultural transformation in their institutions?
Sure. What I think about the role marketers can play in culture transformation, because they are the individuals that tend to go out and sort of do the deep dive, have the data, have the insights on what is it like to be here. So marketers can play that role in really helping to, what I will say, marketers should not go at it alone. Let me say that first.
Yeah.
They should definitely not go at it, go at it alone.
It's not going to work. We know that.
It's not going to work. Yeah, it's not going to work. And really being sort of crystal clear in what it is that you're trying to achieve, in that culture transformation work. So really being aligned around the purpose, around the problem or the opportunity that exists, and really being really crystal clear about what it is that you want out of that. The role going back to the role that I think marketers can play in that is, how do you take everything that encapsulates all of your findings, all of the information, and put it into what I will say a brand story. So what's the story that you want to tell, and that storytelling about the institution and about what it's actually like to work here, and how do you take all of these data points that you'll have come in and really craft an amazing story that lives on through the actual transformation itself and beyond. And I think that's really how marketing can really help drive that, drive that culture transformation, because ultimately they're the individuals that have that creative lens and can really take those finite pieces and piece together a story that is so compelling that it makes someone, when they click on an ad for a job at an institution, and it loads a video talking about what it's like to work here, to really have that piece of content connect so deeply with an individual that they're like, wow, I want to be here because this story is so compelling
and authentic and emotionally connected. Yeah. It has to be real. I mean, we could give anybody a script,
right,
to be in a video like that, but is it real?
Yeah. Is it real? Is it real? And going back to some of the strategies that when I think about as it relates to culture transformation, you have to start. The first strategy I will say, start from a place in what you don't know. So start by asking the question, what don't I know about our culture? Because often enough, we will start with the things that we know, and lean heavily on that and say, here's everything I know about our culture. So let's build around that. So I say start from a place of asking the question of what don't I know about our culture. Part two would be really resist the urge to lean heavily and rely heavily on your current traditions and things that have lived in the institution forever, because it is a place of comfort. It is a place of here's what I know, and you find yourself really digging deep on, well, it's traditional. This is the way you've always done it. This is the way that it's always been lived here. And that can get you stuck, and that'll have you end up in the same place you were before. So not leaning heavily on tradition in the beginning, because you'll end up essentially in the same place you were before. And thirdly, really pulling back the proverbial curtain on culture in a couple of ways. Doing focus groups, and I recommend probably doing this with a third party vendor, because people are more open to talk to folks that don't, that are not a part of an institution. And
we have biases.
And so having that third party do a cultural assessment within the organization, or perform your own cultural assessment. And cultural assessments are very different than employee engagements, because often marketers and other departments, HR, in addition, will say, well, what does that employee engagement say?
Well, it happened again. Prospect Paul is excited about attending your institution, but is getting constantly confused by all of the information and tasks he needs to complete to enroll, creating friction and, even worse, melt. You knew this was going to happen again, which is why you've been flagging the need for a come to Jesus meeting with leadership from marketing, admissions, and IT to audit the digital experience for prospective students. Here's the problem. You're not going to convince Mark from marketing to let go of his marketing automation software. Adriana from admissions just got set up with her new CRM, and Isabel from IT is still working through ticket requests from last Christmas. But what if you could come to the table with a solution that didn't require anyone to let go of their software, while at the same time ensuring a frictionless experience for prospects and current students alike. Well, guess what? Today is your lucky day. Meet Pathify, an innovative higher ed engagement hub that puts students at the center of their college journey. Pathify sits at the center of your school's digital ecosystem, becoming the single user experience interface tying together all systems, content, and communications. Their engagement hub elevates the information that matters most and pushes symptoms like the SIS behind the scenes where they belong, making it simpler for students to discover and engage with the opportunities your institution provides at every step of their journey, from prospect to alumni. What's even better, Pathify has a mobile experience that provides 100% parity with the responsive web app, so your campus app is always in sync. Pathify is a platform that every stakeholder on campus, from marketing to admissions to student affairs to IT and more, can get equally excited about. Learn more about how Pathify is uniting strategic units across campus and bettering the entire student experience by visiting pathify.com. And be sure to tell them that Allison from the application sent you their way.
What I tell individuals is that your culture feeds your environment, which your environment creates the level of your employee engagement, not the other way around. And so people often start with the employee engagement, which is just a snapshot in time, versus what is it actually like to work here, and the cultures and the behaviors and the beliefs that live out each and every day. And I'll give you an example of that. And I think this is one that is probably true on all higher ed, on all universities and college campuses, that the idea and the theory and the belief around faculty is king. And I'm not saying they're not. They're not. But this idea of that a person or an individual can act a certain way, do a certain thing, and all in the name and the vein of, well, I am a faculty member and I can just do what it is that I want to do, and you can't do anything about it. That's cultural. That is your culture, and that is what impacts each and every as a faculty member or dean or whoever it may be. That impacts that. And when an institution is okay with that, and what I mean by being okay with that is by turning a blind eye, not addressing it, and allowing that behavior to exist, knowingly and willing, all for the sake of, that's your culture. The problem is, what's happening now, when you start beginning to see, going back to our next generation in workforce, they don't subscribe to that same level of thinking. Yeah. They are not going to allow someone to treat them in a certain manner or be in a certain environment, all for the sake of, you are at this level or you have this role and I'm here and you can do such a thing. They're not. They're going to voice their opinion. They're also going to lead with their feet and say, I'm going to go somewhere else. And also, by the way, on the way out, I'm going to go to all my platforms and say why I'm leaving and what it's like to actually work here. And that's a big.
Even if they don't do it on social media, they're doing it to their family and friends.
Right.
Yeah. Right. It's negative word of mouth.
It's negative word. It's negative word of mouth. And so, and word travels fast. Yeah. So those are just some of the things that when I think about it. Yeah.
You mentioned data a little bit earlier, and I was wondering, outside of doing focus groups and interviews where you can generate some of that qualitative data, are there any quantitative data points or indicators to be focusing on and keeping track of?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. And here's what I find to be sort of the hard truth is that most times, and every institution is very different. So most times when an institution does seek out data or information, is done at the school level. So you'll find information in these certain pockets. And if something is done in a whole college or university perspective, it's usually done in a way that are surveys that, how do you like to parking? How do you like to benefit? These that don't really get after what is it actually like to work
what
here?
Is my experience?
What is my experience? And so in most cases, one would have to be brave enough, I use the word brave, to start and actually really ask those hard, gut-wrenching questions. And the problem / opportunity is, when you ask those questions, you have to be prepared to to address them and be prepared to do something about them. I remember back in, and this is related, semi-related, but not directly related. Back in, I want to say it was 2020 when the university we did an assessment around BI and B, and it was, and some really tough information came out. But we took it, we absorbed it, and we built plans around that. But again, going back to once you ask the question or really open that door, you have to be willing to walk through it and address those things. So yeah.
Earlier, when you mentioned that idea of employee value proposition, what would they say to a friend about what it's like to work at your college or university? It made me wonder if one of the things that you could be measuring and looking at is a willingness to refer the college or university as a workplace to your friends and family, because that is an indicator of satisfaction, and I would think belonging and other key connections.
Sure. Yeah, no, it is. And your net promoter score, your employee net promoter score is what, is that measure. And I remember a part of the work that I've been doing here at the university, specifically in our human resources department, is that we went through an entire HR transformation over the last 5 years. So the big bang, taking several HR departments, putting them into one department, new processes, new operating model, everything, sort of everything under the sun. What was evident in about year 2 or year 3 was that the experience wasn't matching what our employees were saying, nor the service that they're receiving. And sort of fast forward, what we ended up doing the survey had a net promoter score in there. And at that time, when we did that back in 2019, end of 2019, only 50% of our organization would recommend us to it as a place to work to our friends and family. And so that was a huge
a wake-up call.
There was a huge wake-up call for us to really begin to understand that, quite frankly, we did not have a culture. We took 14 different departments, put them all under one, and kind of said, go. And organizations and institutions typically think that, well, these culture will work itself out, and it doesn't. You either get the culture you want by being deliberate about it, or the one that's unintended by not doing anything. And so we kind of it will work itself out as people begin to sort of gel together. And that just wasn't the case. Fast forward, I'm happy to say after 3 years of some really hard work on culture, our net promoter score is upwards of 85%,
wow.
almost even 90% for our organization. And our organization roughly has about 335, individuals in it, because we support, like I said, the academic division as well as the health system. And so we've been very intentional and deliberate about the culture in which we're trying to shape within HR. And that's something else that I think marketers in other individual spaces, they kind of take on the culture barriers that is in any institution, whether you're talking about a University of Virginia or any other institution. Culture is big, and it lives in a lot of different places, and it's a huge undertaking.
No one person owns it.
No one person.
It's this like amorphous thing that's existing.
Yeah. No one person owns it, but everybody impacts it. And so it's that thing. How do you begin to have a shared set of values and principles in which we agree to coexist by, and we then lean into those things. But one of the things that, as we were going through our body of work, was, well, if we're building our own culture within HR, how is that going to play out in the schools and in the rest of the university? And I continue to lean into, no one says no to great work. If we're providing great work and we're providing great service, no one says no to that. What will often end up happening is people will begin to recognize and say, hey, there's something different about that HR organization. There's something different about the level of service. They begin to ask questions about, well, what's going on over there? And then one of our inspirations is basically to be a vision of what a collection of people are capable of for everyone else, and we allow them to follow and help out where we can, but really focusing on not trying to boil the ocean, but where do you want to start small?
I'm really impressed by the intentionality and this idea of showing versus telling. Yes. Because you've got to prove this concept. You're not just going to be able to change people's minds about it. You've got to show them.
Yeah. This is definitely coaching work on any level is definitely a do with and not for. Often people will kind of want to go in the back room and say, hey, let's come out and we're going to show you this great culture. Here you all go out and then you live it. And it just doesn't work that way. So it's definitely like any change initiative or transformation initiative, it is definitely a do with and not for. So how do you get people involved in that body of work? So ultimately they can see themselves in it. They can see their hands in it. It creates a higher level of ownership and adoption around that. And it becomes this thing that we've all done together that we want to sustain and do. And it's not about one person. It's not about one department, because ultimately what I tell individuals that your culture should live on even after the person that started it moves on. And that's a true sign of what's, that the culture was about, has been incorporated in the DNA of an institution and not within a person with him or herself.
I love that. Not an easy task, right?
No.
To weave this change and sort of organically adopt change across an organization, but that's the only way for it to be sustainable.
Yeah, that's the only way. It's the only way for it to be. That's the only way for it to be sustainable. And it can't live in certain pockets and not in others. But that doesn't mean that everyone has to think of it as an orchestra. While we all have different instruments, different roles in which we play within that piece, they all come together harmoniously for a collective musical production. But they're all doing very vast and different things. So, but they all understand their role that they play within that piece too. So it's not about having every single school within the larger context of an institution live by and do all the same things word for word. Is really because you will have subcultures, but what you have to be sure of that just the subculture support and influence and most importantly is in alignment with what the larger culture is for around the institution. And that's really what you're looking for. And people often think that culture means that everyone has to look, feel, think a certain way, and that's not the case. I go back to it is a lived set of values and beliefs about who we are and what we do within an organization or institution that we all agree to live by. So think as guiding principles as human beings, and that can look very differently from area to area, but the core of it is still the same.
And it just feels right for higher ed to me when you're talking about this, because we are so values and mission driven as organizations. I mean, that's a really common thread. Yeah. So it seems like this is a really great fit for thinking in this way, in higher ed in particular. Any final advice or key takeaways you'd offer to our listeners who are mostly higher ed marketers, but who are maybe looking to lead successful cultural transformation initiatives?
Yeah, no, I would say start with what you don't know, asking the question, what don't I know about our culture? So I will go back to that and really sort of spend time just kind of unpacking a list of things that which you don't know or understand about the current culture. The other advice would be to really spend a whole lot of time or an enormous amount of time really thinking about what is it that you want to achieve? What is it that you're looking at doing? Are you focusing on the student? Are you focusing on the employee? And really being crystal clear about that, and then understanding what the opportunities are in front of you, or what problems lie that there will serve as roadblocks or barriers to the to the success of that too as well. Start small. Don't try to boil the ocean out of the gate. Really start small and deliberate, and really and be intentional about what it is that you're trying to put together and that you're trying to produce for the overall for the overall institution, and most importantly making sure that that whatever your brand is and whatever your values are truly match what's actually happening and experiencing in your institution. There are a couple of good books that I always kind of go back to and resonate to whenever I kind of want to rethink or sort of refresh myself on things. One is the Culture Code, which is a great book which talks about culture and the code and the DNA of an organization. Another one is the Culture Map by Aaron Meyer, which talks about how culture mapping and what it looks like within an organization or institution. And then thirdly, the one that's orchestrating transformation, which really talks about how do you sort of put all the pieces together to have that harmonious transformation within your organization or institution. So all great resources for out there. We also have and we can put it in the podcast notes. I'll provide you a link. So with what we've done in UVA HR is that we have a full-on culture guide and playbook that really explains and details what our culture is all about and how we live by that culture. And so I'll share that out and the listeners can take a look at that. It's open to the public because the website is open to the public. Along with that, we also have our culture operational plan, which outlines all of our activities and tactics throughout the entire calendar year. So again, it goes back to really being deliberate about what it is that you're trying to achieve through your coach. So happy to share that with the listeners, and they can check those things out.
Thank you. So many insights, so many resources. I can't wait to find out the answer to what do I not know about the culture. I love that way of looking at it. Thank you so much, Fredrick. This was really, really educational.
No, thank you very much. I really appreciate the time. And thank you for your listeners for taking the time to listen.
Thanks for listening, everyone. If you want more great insights and advice from experts like Fredrick, make sure you subscribe to the podcast.
Hey, all, Zach here from Enrollify. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, admissions, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks that are all designed to empower you to become a better higher ed professional. Our shows feature a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Mickey Baines, Jeremy Tiers, Jamie Hunt, Jamie Gleason, and many, many more. You can learn more about the Enrollify Podcast Network at podcasts.enrollify.org. Our shows help higher ed marketers and admissions professionals find their next big idea. Find yours at podcasts.enrollify.org.